DBMS Important Questions Part 2 SQL. Explain about group by and having clauses in SQL. This is question number 5. So here let's try to understand the concept with the examples to see what is meant by group by and having clause. First, what is meant by a group by clause and when we use this clause in our SQL. So this group by clause is used to group rows. So what is that? It is nothing but grouping the rows. Which type of rows? The rows that have same values. So what is that group by speaks about? Grouping the rows of same value. So let's try to understand that with the example. So keep in mind, as of now, the group by clause is used along with the select statement. Select statement in the sense select from where clauses. So let's try to understand this with the example, and again let's come back here. So let's move on further. Here I have a table named student. So what are the attributes of this table? SID, SNAME, marks and city. The query that is given for this table is find the total marks of students in each city. So try to understand. So they said it is in each city. So what is that I have to do here? I have to separate the cities from this table. So how many cities do I have? So I have two cities. One is Pune, the second one is Mumbai. The total number of cities are 2. That means I'm grouping the cities into one single group. Pune as one group and Mumbai as one group. So what should I do with this grouped cities? Here I need to find the total marks of the students who belongs to each city. That means students from Pune and students from Mumbai. So it's very clear here we are using the concept of grouping by the city name, isn't it? So if you're finding this kind of scenario, you need to go for the clause called as group by clause. So let's try to understand how the query is written. So here, first I am putting all the 3 clauses. Just now I said the group by clause is used for the select statement. Select from where. So here, whatever I need as output, that I am going to put in the select, like how I have explained in the previous video lectures. So here I need the total marks of the students. So what is the aggregate function that I use for total? That is sum of marks. This I enter and this is what I need as output, that therefore I put that in the select statement. So what else I need in the output? I also need the city name so that I can clearly get an idea in the output to which city the total marks has been calculated. For that, I've added one more attribute called as city in the select statement. Very clear, whatever you need in the output, that you need to put in the select statement. Clear? Next one is from clause. So from clause, you need to mention the name of the table, that from where the operations are being performed. So here the table name is student and that I need to mention in the from clause. And now, is there any condition given in the question? No, there's no condition given in the question. So I need not put anything in the where clause. So I am removing the where clause over here. What else I need to consider here? Here I need to consider about the grouping by city data. For that, I am using the clause group by and mentioning the name of the attribute for which the grouping has to be done. So the name of the attribute here is city. So that's what in our previous slide we have seen, grouping the rows that have same value. So here I have city as a row which is city is an attribute which is carrying the same value, and the rows are Pune, Pune. So equal, both are same value. So this will be formed as one group, and this row which has Mumbai, Mumbai is forming the second row. Hope the concept is clear. So once I put group by city, I'll be getting the output, that is sum of marks and city as attribute names that I put in the select clause, and the output we can see in this form. Now hope the concept of group by is clear. Now let's get back to the points. What is it saying about the group by clause? So group by clause forms a group of rows which have same value, and it is used in the select statement, that is select from where clauses, and this query can be used in conjugation with the aggregate functions, isn't it? Just now in the example, the aggregate function that we have seen is the sum. So the concept of aggregate functions in SQL that I have been providing in the I button, you please click into it and watch the video as well. So now the queries that contain group by clause are called as grouped queries. So what are these called? These are nothing but the grouped queries. So let's now look into the syntax. The syntax goes something like this. Select column names. So in previous, city and sum of marks were the columns for me, isn't it? Next, mention the name of the table in the from clause, and then put the condition, if any, in the question in the where clause, and then you use the concept of group by the attribute names and end up with the semicolons. So this all depends on how the question is given. So you have to analyze the question in detail and try to put the elements in their appropriate place according to the syntax. So that is how you need to write your answer the queries. Okay, so next one, let's try to understand what is meant by having clause and how is this having clause helpful. So in simple, this having clause is something that filters the records on summarized group by results. So from this line it is very clear that group by clause takes the help of having clause, or I can say having clause works with the group by clause, in which form? For filtering out the output, filtering out the output. So what is this filtering of the output? That we'll try to understand in the example, and then let's come back here. So before that, what is this having clause applies to the summarized group of records, whereas where clause is used for the individual records. So what is this point? Is very important points. Let's try to understand once the example is explained. Let's move on to the example first. So here is the example, the same example, but we have provided one more extension, or we have added one more tuple or the record over here saying SID 5, SNAME E, marks 84, and we have added one more city called as Chennai. Now how many cities do we have here? 3 cities. So how many groups? 3 groups. Okay. So let's move back to the query. So what is this query about? It says find the total marks of each student in city whose name is Pune and Mumbai. So be very clear with the query. So we have 3 cities over here, that is Pune, Mumbai and Chennai, and among these I need only the data of Pune and Mumbai and not the Chennai. So here I have to use group by clause. At the same time, I need to use a condition given saying only Pune and Mumbai and not Chennai. So this condition I'm not going to put in the where clause, because where clause will not work here. Here you have to use one more clause for putting the condition with respect to group by clause. That is nothing but the having clause. So let's try to see how this having clause going to help us. So here I'll be writing the query as it is. Select sum of marks city from student and group by city. Now city group by city means here at this point I'll be getting the data of Pune, Mumbai and Chennai, and here I'll be filtering out only Pune and Mumbai out by using having clause, having city in Pune, Mumbai, that you need to put in inverted commas because those are nothing but the strings, and end with the semicolon. Hope have this having clause have helped you. Okay, you have understood, okay, isn't it? Now the output you observe, I am getting only the output of only Pune and Mumbai and not the Chennai. So from these 3 outputs, I am pulling out only Pune and Mumbai output by using the having clause. So now let's make the points clear. For keep putting the conditions, I've used having clause not the where clause. Why? Because the where clause applies to the individual records. Keep in mind, where clause, if you are having any condition and if you want to put the condition, that you are not putting in the where clause, because that is applied only for the individual records. But now in the query what we have seen, it is for the grouped records, isn't it? For grouped records you have to go for having clause. So you have to put the condition in the having clause and not in the where clause. Be very clear with the concept. And only the groups that meet the having clause criteria will be returned. That means only those who satisfy the condition in the having will be returned as the output. Next, having clause requires group by clause. Yes, because the having clause just now we have seen it works only for the grouped categories, yes or no? Or grouped queries. That's why having clause and group by clause go hand in hand. Now let's look into the queries. Select column name from table name where condition. If you have any condition for the individual record, that you can put in the where clause, and group by mention the column names where the grouping has to happen, and if you are having any condition with respect to the grouped element, that you have to put in the having clause. Hope the concept is clear with the examples provided here. This is how you use your group by and having clauses in SQL. Hope the concept is clear. Thank you very much.